So I wanted to talk today a little bit about Kailasa Chandra Das and the Vaishnava Foundation that he has founded, and my interaction with him and some of his followers. Now, the first encounter I had with Kailasa Chandra was in the early 1980s. He came to Santa Cruz, California, where me and some other refugees were living at the time. And he was married to Jadharani at the time, and he brought her to the restaurant there. They had a Govind's restaurant, and he was just ordering her around in a very bossy boots manner, and he was demeaning her publicly, just insulting her and talking down to her, and I could really see he's got a misogynistic issue. He's got an issue with, oppressing women and not respecting women. And that was very obvious to me and everybody in the room. Everybody in the room was just rolling their eyeballs going, oh my God, look at the way this guy is treating this poor woman. And Jadharani was an important devotee. She was one of the first devotees. So she definitely should have been treated respectfully and not treated like your pet dog. Go fetch this and go fetch that and go get me this and go get me that. That's not how you treat anyone, really, but especially a senior devotee of Prabhupada who deserves respect. But he just doesn't know how to respect women. I mean, that's pretty obvious, and it was obvious to us at the time. Now, this problem has been all over ISKCON, with the ISKCON leaders. They mistreat women, they demean women, they talk down to women, they exploit women. And eventually, what happened is Jadharani ran off to take shelter of the Narayan Maharaj movement. So it was a big loss for Prabhupada and Prabhupada's movement that Kailasa mishandled this woman badly, And then, on top of all that, Kailasa was giving his rather crazy astrological predictions to the devotees in Santa Cruz. And he was really frightening those devotees by telling them that California was going to fall into the ocean soon, within a few months. So this was his astrological reading. But I argued that Srila Prabhupada saw some guy on the beach, I think Laguna Beach, with a sign saying California is going to fall into the ocean, and Prabhupada says, no, that's never going to happen. So Prabhupada did not predict that California was falling into the ocean. So Kailasa was trying to get everybody to move somewhere to the Midwest, to some safe place, which was going to be the new coastline, like Utah or something. And he took a few devotees went there to the Midwest, but they returned to California not long after that, saying they just couldn't get along with Kailasa. He was just a bossy boots tyrant. So his big idea of saving the devotees by sending them to the Midwest didn't work because he could not work with those people. And it's been that way ever since. He doesn't really have a group of people that he works with, associates with, and all the rest of it. He lives as an isolated hermit type guy, supposedly off-grid in the middle of nowhere. So later on, Kailasa came to Berkeley. Very briefly, I saw him maybe once or twice there, but he spent most of his time at the Hansaduda farm, and I was told he was living up on top of the hill, watching the farm, watching who was coming in and out, and he was very paranoid. He was sitting up there with his gun, and a friend of mine went up to the farm and went up on top of the hill and talked to Kailasa, and he was just, very paranoid, worried about who was coming on and off the property. But somehow or other, he got himself signed on as one of the directors of the farm, so when the farm was sold, he got half of the money and half of the cows, and then he took off with half of the cows, and no one knew where the cows went. He never went to the Berkeley Temple to tell us, well, I'm going to be taking the cows here or there. The cows just disappeared, and it took a long time for the devotees to figure out what happened to the cows. So he was very, inconsiderate towards the devotees who had concern for those cows. So then he ends up going to the Midwest somewhere with his one disciple. He had made one disciple, whom he called Riktaharshan, and even Riktaharshan later on came back to California saying he couldn't tolerate working with Kailasa Chandra. He was a tyrant, so he couldn't even handle having one person. Now the current followers of Kailash just say this is all lies, this never happened, and all the rest of it. Well, how do they know this didn't happen? They weren't there. They're not eyewitnesses. I'm an eyewitness. Did they ever ask Jadharani what happened? Did they ever ask Riktaharshan what happened? I mean, Riktaharshan has made public statements that he couldn't tolerate working with Kailash. So, what can I tell you? They're trying to rewrite history, which is typical of the GBC people. Well, this didn't happen, that didn't happen, the other didn't happen, with no evidence. So now I think we should evaluate some of the philosophical positions that Kailasa Chandra has taken, and it is an odd coincidence that many of the positions he has taken are the same position as the ISKCON GBC leaders like Ravindra Swarup, Tribhuram Swami, and also people like Narayan Maharaj. They all seem to have similar ideas on certain issues. For example, they all say that conditioned souls can be Diksha Gurus, that this is a unanimous idea that they all share. Kailasa Chandra says that the Madhyamadikari can be a Diksha Guru, and Prabhupada says a Madhyamadikari is a conditioned soul who can fall down and become a demon. So the GBC Gurus can fall down and become demons. Narayan Maharaj was supporting the GBC when they said Gurus can fall down and become demons. And Narayan Maharaj was helping Satsvarupa write the Guru Reform Notebook, where they introduced the idea that Gurus fall down, and Gurus can be voted in and voted out, and all the rest of it. So that is exactly what Kailash says. The Gurus can fall down and become demons. So one of the problems with this is the children of ISKCON have been worshipping these quote-unquote demon gurus, and they've been exploited and put into all kinds of difficulty. So the policy of having people worship demons, or people who can become demons, has been very devastating for the children of ISKCON. Now, when me and Sulochan were complaining about the child abuse, the ISKCON people were saying Sulochan and me are intoxicated sahajas and beer drinkers and all the rest of it. Now, Kailash was saying the same thing, that Sulochan isn't following. Sulochan and Paranjan are sahajas. So we're trying to say there's a mass of children being abused, and they're trying to establish that we are not credible because we are beer-drinking fools. So, wait a minute, that's helping the GBC, and that's helping the molesting situation. Now, some of the GBC and Kailash began to say that Sulochan has a big ego trip going on, and he has a martyr complex. Well, wait a minute, Sulochan is just saying we can't have all this child abuse going on. What's that got to do with it being a martyr or not being a martyr? It's silly. You know, Sulochan didn't want to have children being molested all over the place, left, right, and center. He was very concerned his children would be abused if they were left in New Vrindavan, and one of his children died, was drowned in the pond there. So Sulochan's concerns were accurate. I don't know what this has to do with the martyr complex. There's lots of people in the world complaining about child abuse. They don't have a martyr complex. They're just making a statement which makes a lot of sense. Now, around 1985-86, Ravindra Swarup began to say that Prabhupada and Jesus and people like, departed acharyas and pure devotees are posthumous, post-samadhi, and even some of them said they are post-mortem. So this is a unanimous statement from all of these camps. The GBC and Ravindra and the Gaudiya Math and Narayan Maharaj and Kailash all started saying around the same time that acharyas are posthumous, post-samadhi, post-mortem. Were they all working together? Well, we can't prove that, but it does look very strange that they all unanimously came up with the same idea. Now, the Kailash people are saying there's no proof that Kailash was working with the GBC. Well, maybe not officially. There's lots of Mayavadis all over India. They don't work together necessarily, but they all have the same idea. They share the same idea. So when Prabhupada says the Mayavadis, he doesn't always mean they're working together or that they have all wrote the same papers together or anything like that, but they all share the same idea. So the idea that the acharyas are posthumous and postsamadhi is something they all say. Kailash also attacks the worship of Jesus. His followers are saying that the Christians are the Kartabhajas, Sahajas, whatever that is, because they worship a departed acharya. So this is Sahaja, which means it's false. We shouldn't be like the Christians. The Christians are worshiping a pure devotee. We can't worship a pure devotee. We have to worship somebody who might become a demon. Okay, go try to sell that to the Christians. Go tell the Christians they have to stop worshiping Jesus and they have to start worshiping a person who might become a demon. That's not going to fly. That just sounds insane to any normal religious person. We have to worship a person who might become a demon. It's just not going to fly. And it's not flying. We don't see them making any progress with this idea. So another thing these people all say is that we have to pray that another pure devotee comes. We don't have a pure devotee now. We can't just read Prabhupada's books and find out about Krishna from his books. We need a living person. So we need to pray to Krishna for the return of Jesus, the return of the pure devotee. Another pure devotee should come. Yeah, but what if Krishna has arranged for people to take shelter of Prabhupada? What if Krishna's already made an arrangement for people to connect to him, and praying for another person is just diverting people away from taking shelter of the actual system that Prabhupada and Krishna wanted us to have. And people like Gaur Govinda, who is a GBC guy, he says that all the time. Oh, you have to pray to Krishna to get a pure devotee. Prabhupada's gone, he's post-mortem, and now we need another person. Yeah, but what if Krishna made this arrangement that we're supposed to worship Prabhupada now? Now, when we confronted some of these Kailash people about these quotes, where Prabhupada says the Madhyam can fall down and become a demon, they says that's nonsense and that's hogwash. Yes, they actually said that. Prabhupada's statements are hogwash. So what is Kailash training his disciples to think? That Prabhupada's statements are hogwash? I mean, why would they say something like that? And so they just can't deal with the issue that Prabhupada has said that the Madhyam is insufficient. We should not have a Madhyam guru. So now the Ritviks, that's us, the people who worship Prabhupada, we're bogus, but wait a minute, the Ritviks are the people who had made a lawsuit to get original books. Why are we condemning the Ritviks as bogus, crazy people when the Ritviks are doing the actual, on-the-ground hard work of getting things done? The Ritviks are making books, they're making temples, they're making devotees, they're getting things done. But they're bogus. They're bogus because they're getting things done. They're doing what Prabhupada wanted. Well, that's exactly what the GBC says. The Ritviks are bogus because they're getting things done. So around 1997, we started helping the Gurukula victims who were being abused in the ISKCON Gurukula children school system. And we were putting together a lawsuit to sue the GBC for $400 million. And one of the reasons for that was, at the time, the children were taking their lives. There was an epidemic of the victims taking their lives. And many victims told me this lawsuit was absolutely 100% necessary, because without this lawsuit, many more of the victims would no longer be alive. But how did you guess? The GBC, the Narayan Maharaj people, and Kailash people began to say, oh, this is all about money. ISKCON is going to be losing our money. Okay, how is it your money? It's our money, it's the GBC money, it's the Narayan money, and it's Kailash money. No, that means they identify with ISKCON's money. But why is money more important than children? Isn't children being alive or not alive important? And then the Kailash people said, well, this was just middle-aged people. No, they weren't children anymore. No, 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 no. Hundreds of kids who were small kids were taken out of their schools at the time because the parents of those little children now realize there is a problem with these schools. So hundreds of kids were pulled out, and thousands of kids were saved from ever going there in the first place, because after that, people now realize there's a big problem there. So we saved hundreds, maybe thousands of kids from being victims of that, and Kailash is holding a grudge. Oh, this is all about money, Prabhu. You guys are greedy for money. No. And there are people saying that I was paid. I was paid to help this lawsuit. No, I was not paid. I didn't take a penny from this lawsuit. There's no evidence that I took a penny from this. But it sounds rather insane when the Kailash people say that the GBC is paying me to help them. I mean, I'm being paid to sue the GBC for $400 million. I mean, this sounds really nutty, and it is nutty. In other words, they're just, grasping at straws here. Pranjan is a paid agent of the GBC. I don't think so. Now, another problem is Kailash says we don't need any more initiated, trained Brahmanas to do the deity worship of Krishna anymore. We don't need that. We're going to just have Krishna stuffed in a cupboard somewhere, and no one's going to be taking care of him. Wait, that's not what Prabhupada wanted. Prabhupada wanted these deities to be cared for, very nicely cared for. I mean, he said in Berkeley we need 50 Brahmanas to take care of the deities here, and Kailash says we need 0 Brahmanas? Well, why do we need 0 Brahmanas? He says we shouldn't initiate people anymore. We shouldn't train them in the mantras anymore. We shouldn't conduct a deity worship anymore. That's all going to come to a halt. Well, the result is that many deities ended up living with cockroaches and mice and rat stool and everything else because of Kailash's idea that we need to end the deity worship program for these deities. We're not supposed to mistreat the deity of Krishna. That is like rule number 1. We're supposed to make sure deities are being taken care of nicely and opulently with many servants, not 0 servants. So I've never understood Kailash's plan. Let's just end Krishna's deity worship. It's just all going to stop. We're not going to worship Krishna anymore. Why are we going to do that? No, we need to make nice deity worship. But as soon as the Kailash people see we're establishing deity worship, they say, oh, that's sahaja, that's bogus. So yeah, worshiping Krishna is bogus. We can't be doing that. We need to live in a hut in the woods somewhere, don't preach, don't have deities, and don't print books, and don't distribute books, and don't make devotees, don't have people chanting Hare Krishna, don't have Harinam Sankirtan, and don't have nothing. Just have, off-grid living in a woods situation. That's not what Prabhupada wanted. Prabhupada never said that was going to be the system he would have. Now, one thing the Kailash people say to me on a regular basis is that the papers that Kailash gave to the GBC that were being circulated by the GBC were amended and rewrote by the GBC. Well, maybe, but he wrote for Rochan for years and years and years and years. I mean, those papers are evidently written by Kailash. I mean, he never challenged that. He never came out and said, these were not written by me. I mean, we said he wrote these papers, and, but they're the same things that he says all the time anyway. That the whole idea of worshiping pure devotees is the bogus Christian idea. We can't be doing that. We need to be worshiping people who can become demons, like the Madhyamadikari, who has insufficient knowledge. And he's made that very public. I mean, he says that all the time. No one should worship pure devotees. That's not a good idea. What you need to do is find a conditioned soul, like a Madhyam, and worship that person. That is not what Prabhupada is teaching. Now, one thing is the Kailash people rely a lot on the appointment tape, which says, allegedly, that when I order you to become guru, you'll become a guru. Yeah, but no order was given to anybody. Nobody was ordered to become guru. But if we look at that tape, it says initiations in the future will be conducted by Ritviks. And when the Ritviks deviate, they'll be replaced. So that's not an appointment of gurus. People who are going to be replaced are not gurus. They're Ritviks, the representatives of the Acharya. And Tamal later admitted that Prabhupada had only appointed Ritviks. But in any case, Kailash has no explanation for what should be done. We can't worship Prabhupada. That's no good. We have to worship the Madhyam. Why would we do that? So he doesn't have any idea what should really be done. Prabhupada never said we should worship the Madhyam. There's no order for that anywhere. He didn't establish that for his society. So he put his murtis in his temples so his worship would continue. That is the system that he made. We knew that without the July 9th letter. But Sulochana did say that the appointment tape was spliced. That was one of the things he kept saying, that there's a change in the background noise, there's clicks and things like that. And this was all verified later on by Norman Pearl, a audio expert. He said this tape has been modified. So the Kailash people are relying on a tape that Sulochana said is modified. Now the Kailash people often say that Sulochana is their hero, but Sulochana was upset with the Rabindra Swarup and Kailash idea that the Acharya is posthumous. He hated that idea. Sulochana said this posthumous guru idea of Kailash and Rabindra Swarup is minimizing the Acharya. Sulochana did not agree with Kailash at all. He said this is offensive. We can't be calling the Acharya posthumous and post-samadhi and post-mortem. That is offensive. And of course, Kailash began to call Prabhupada a Shiksha devotee. The temple pot washer is a Shiksha devotee, and Prabhupada is just a neophyte Shiksha devotee like all the rest of us. And Sulochana hated that as well. He says, what do you mean Prabhupada is only the Shiksha devotee? That's ridiculous. So it's an insult to Prabhupada. And Sulochana agreed with that. And he told me that. We can't be calling Prabhupada the Shiksha devotee. We can't be calling Prabhupada post-mortem. It's just ridiculous. So Kailash is writing for the GBC, and he's writing for Rochan, and he's saying what they say. They say the same things. So they're on the same page. Now, one other thing is, they say Prabhupada cannot take the sins anymore, but Prabhupada says Jesus is still taking the sins of his sincere people now. And they think that's a bad idea. Prabhupada's idea is a bad idea. Why is Prabhupada saying Jesus can still take sins now? That's wrong, that's bogus. Well, how do they know that's bogus? Prabhupada said, Jesus is my guru, and we respect Jesus, and so on and so forth. So Kailash says we shouldn't have the Christian idea, but Prabhupada says without the teachings of Jesus, I would not have been able to come here and preach. So we don't need Jesus. Well, then there would not have been any Krishna movement in the West without Jesus. We don't need Jesus. Well, that means we don't need Krishna either, because they all work together, according to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada also said Jesus saved the West from becoming an uncivilized caveman-type existence. Why do we want that to be the standard? We're going to go back to caveman life without the teachings of Jesus? How is that going to help anything? So, how could all of these people have all of the same ideas all at the same time? I don't know. Is it a coincidence? Were they colluding secretly, which some people think is what was going on? These people were holding secret meetings behind closed doors? Or what? Nobody knows. But they stink alike, speak alike, sound alike, acts like a duck, talks like a duck. Maybe it is a bunch of ducks. So anyway, this is just to give a rough idea of the problems we're having with the Kailash program. And I hope this helps people. Hari Bol.